whatever it is you're holding on to, it's perfectly fine to let it go. Welcome everyone to Parking Lot Philosophy, the only show that is filmed live in a car. I don't know, last week hit me like a truck. It was kind of a weird week. I wouldn't say I was depressed. I would not say I was depressed. But I would say I was thinking a lot about the stages of grief. It's something that I think is really interesting, the 5 stages of grief, partially because a lot of times, like, I will argue I'm in denial, not necessarily about grief, but about the 5 stages of grief. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. But when I look into it, I really do feel like a lot of times I can see myself going through the stages of grief on like projects I'm interested in, jobs that I apply to, like hobbies that I just decide to follow for some reason. I go through this cycle of I start to work on something new, I start to get invested in something new, I put a lot of energy towards it, and then it starts to kind of collapse and starts to fall. And then that's when I start to go into that. It's like, okay, we're starting, I think denial is the first one, but denial is especially one where it's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that much of a problem, et cetera, et cetera. And then eventually I get to bargaining. Well, it's like, well, maybe I can't do what I originally intended, but I can at least do this. And slowly, but one thing I never actually do is get to acceptance. I'm very bad about accepting the thought of something just failing, something not working out, which is very weird because I would argue I'm a growth mindset person. I've failed at a lot of things, and I think that's made me a much better person. I think I learn a lot more when I do fail, but there's something about when it's not something necessarily like work related or something related to the project that I just couldn't do, but rather something I'm giving up on. That's when I really struggle to have that growth mindset, because you can learn a lot by giving up on things. And I think that's kind of what hit me last week was I really need to do a better job at just letting go of the things that are kind of holding me back. Because what I tend to do, and I think I've talked about this before if you've listened to the podcast a few times, I tend to have a lot of projects at once. I am not good at exercising that kind of internal command to say like no to a project or no to like a responsibility or no to a hobby. And part of that is because I don't let go of old hobbies and old projects and things. And I think that could be really detrimental. But I also think another layer of this. So let's take a step back. Let's organize this into like sections that you can follow. The reason I mention this, I've been working on a pretty big video project over the last few weeks, but it's a project where as I get further into the video, I think I just don't like it. I'm not enjoying it as much anymore, which is something that happens a lot of times when I make videos. I would argue that I get past scripting, I enjoy the script. I start recording for it, I enjoy the recording. I get about halfway through editing, I'm enjoying the editing, but it's that last half of editing. So I would argue that, the last 20% maybe of the actual project, that is when I start to not like it. Because I've heard the script so many times, I've heard the argument so many times, I'm like, this is just a bad video. And I think I need to let that go. I need to be fine with just letting a project exist, because so many times what I do is I have an idea in mind. I will save the idea because I'm not ready to make the idea yet. And that is not true. I can make the ideas. It's rather, if I want to get them out timely, maybe I can't make those ideas. But in a way too, it's like, do I need to worry about time constraints and things like that? So anyway, that was the first thing that kind of got me thinking about it. The second thing is going to make me sound like a giga dweeb. But that's okay. This is a safe podcast. This is a nice, happy car to be in. I use Discord. Shocking with all the things you've learned about me so far. And I would say I'm not very active on most Discords. Most of the time I just use it to direct message my friends. We call, we play video games together, so on and so forth. However, there has been one Discord throughout all of my use of Discord, which started when I was like in high school, that I have actually actively participated in, actually cared about the people I'm having conversations. And mind you, this is people I've never met. I only interacted with because of this Discord. And it was all surrounded by this creator who did not make content related to self-help or anything like any, productivity influencing, none of the sorts. However, during COVID, he decided to make a Discord, and it was amazing. I mean, it was really great. It hit me right at the time where I was like self-improvement, self-help, all these things, because during COVID, I think also too, I was a young male in college age, and I think that's the time that a lot of young men tend to follow productivity and self-help stuff, because we're trying to figure out what we're doing in life, really trying to find ourselves. And so this Discord for me, I've been in it for, I think at this point, 4 years. It's been kind of crazy. However, the creator decided and rightfully so, I think, looking back on it, it's not like he's necessarily the person who should do it. But he had kind of said like, look, I was in my 20s. I felt like I knew a lot of things, but now I'm realizing I don't know a lot of things. So he decided he's no longer going to really participate. However, we all as a community kind of were like, okay, we'll take this up together. And slowly since then, and I'm finally realizing, like it hit me like a truck last week, that this Discord server is dead. I mean, this place that I've made a lot of friends in, this place that I've, talked a lot about like what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do, and even listening to like other people who, we can be completely across the world, like completely separated by, the ocean. And yet we're all kind of thinking alike and things like that. And so it is it's a memorable place for me. It's kind of, for a while there, it was like the first thing I do in the morning, not legitimately, but very early in the morning, I would check the Discord to see what messages I missed because, I was really connected to it. Again, all of this makes me sound like a dweeb. That being said, it was a community. And last week, it's been dying for a while. And I think the 5 stages of grief, we went through denial where we were like, yeah, we as the community can take it up. It'll be fine. And then, we also did some bargaining. I'm trying to remember the orders of these. We definitely did some bargaining where we're like, okay, well, it's not going to be like full participation like we used to have, but maybe like a few of us can still like, talk and whatever. And then there was definitely anger. There were a lot of people who were like angry at the mods for not doing enough or other people in the community not interacting enough and things like that. Definitely some like depression, like some major grief going on in the server. And now I think is the stage where we kind of have to accept that it is indeed over and done. And that is kind of what I realized last week in the culmination of thinking about projects and thinking about, letting things go. I don't remember what it was that I necessarily saw that planted the seed of like, oh shit, I'm like experiencing the stages of grief for this Discord server. But that's what made me like kind of think back and go like, I really do attach myself to things that if I just let them go, I think it would be less stressful, less problematic for me. And that's kind of how I feel about this Discord server now is it's sad because you build up all of these memories with a group of people, whether it be in person, online, however you do. You build a community together and then something happens and it slowly starts tearing apart and you don't want it to tear apart. But I think it is. And so one thing, I've been like, what do I do? How do I go about leaving this? And I think the best thing you can do is just accept that things are over, accept that you had amazing memories, that you had a good time, and kind of move forward and move on. So anyway, I hope that made sense. Just let go of things. Make sure you're not holding yourself back because of, something that you once experienced or something you wished for, things like that. Bye for now.